Okay guys, listen up. This is Mukuro's TWD, so you know the joke I must do to open it, right? It's gonna be so funny, I fucking promise. It's like the funniest shit you'll ever see. Y'all ready for it? Okay, here goes! Did you really think I would fall back to the same cliche twice after Kyoko's video? Come on, give me a little credit, would you? Permission to move out, everyone. Those fools. I'll enlighten you all to the brilliance. Welcome back, everyone, to TWD, the series in which your local idiot puts on the thinking cap for just long enough. TWD number 9 is special. I've waited for this moment for a long time since I started this series. An inevitability when confronted by the Despair Sisters. Still, this is not Junko's show. Nah. We're giving the spotlight to her big sis, Mukuro Ikusaba. I'll say, this one will be very enjoyable to work on. Let's go. Mukuro, I always felt sorry for you. You're certainly handed the short stick at the draw, holy fuck. So, for those of you who don't know, Mukuro Ikusaba, the ultimate soldier, is the second character to commit die in the game.
I invoke the mighty summon spell! Help! To me, godly spear, Gunyear! This wasn't supposed to... Why me?
Yeah, imagine getting screen time. Could not be her. And you wanna know what's crazy? Mukuro still manages to be my third favorite character of this game. And no, that is not a joke. It is kind of weird considering how little time she stays alive in the game, but everything else where she appears or is referenced to is just so damn cool. So we have a rather interesting conundrum to solve with this. How do we even talk about a character like Mukuro? Well, we don't. Or rather, we don't in the normal game. For the most part, anyways. For the part that we can talk about, though, oh.
Mukuro Ikusaba. Mukuro Ikusaba, the 16th student, lying hidden somewhere in this school. The one they call the ultimate despair. Watch out for her.
Yeah, you didn't think I wouldn't play this, did you? I'm a troll, but I'm not heartless, jeez. In any case, yes. Despite the enormous meme value that this scene has, you can't deny something. Coming out of nowhere, Kyoko literally name drops a character we had never heard of before. And even though she was partially wrong, it was still something that tremendously raised the stakes of Chapter 5. And as the game reaches the climax, with Chapter 6 in particular, you learn more about her. Mukuro Ikusaba, Ultimate Soldier, former member of an elite mercenary corps known as Fenrir. Absolute beast of a human being, she entered multiple armed conflicts, leaving every single one of them without a single bruise. Of course, within Danganronpa 1, her presence is merely used for two things. At first as a Junko replacement, and later as a way to emphasize just how terrifying the real Junko could be. But where's the fun in that? The promise of an insanely skilled fighter who could do stunts nobody else, besides Sakura obviously, could pull off, walking around and interacting with everyone sounds great! So what happened? Well, I'm not going to address that here, but I will say that there are plenty of ways to inspect her character nonetheless. In case you haven't noticed yet, this TWD is fundamentally different from all the others, Junko included. And that's because, well, Mukuro is also fundamentally different from the rest of the cast. With that being said, let me say right here that the majority of this video will include a spoiler warning for content past Danganronpa 1, because besides what we get from exposition, there's not much we can take at face value from her character. That being said, the spoiler warning for the praises section begins now, so spoilers ahead! There are two entries in the series we can use for a fair analysis. The IF novel, and Danganronpa 3. And yes, I am using IF because since it was added to an official Danganronpa game as post-game content, I consider it fair game. Speaking of IF, that's where I intend to start. The novel poses a simple question. What if Mukuro survived her death? And then proceeds to shit all over Junko's plan. From IF, we gather a few things. Mukuro is very much the submissive half of the Despair Sisters. As in, she lives to please her sister. Now, given the god complex that Junko has, this naturally raises a few points of interest. I personally believe this dynamic works for reasons I'll explain once we get to Danganronpa 3. For IF though, this creates an interesting struggle. It's here that we learn of Mukuro's affection for one student in particular, our egg boy Makoto. Conflicting allegiances is one thing. What this novel does is something else entirely. Using her affection for Makoto, she convinces herself that what she's doing, i.e. destroying Junko's operation from the inside, is for her sister's own happiness. I love that. The novel perfectly captures every single little difference between Junko and Mukuro without making them too obvious. To the reader, Mukuro's still obsessed with pleasing her sister by the end of the novel, and Junko's still out to achieve maximum despair. And in the end, Mukuro's survival allows for the total cancellation of the killing game. I said something similar in Junko's vid, which was written before this by the way, but do you know how insane that sounds? Oh yeah, this is without mentioning that she fought off at least 100 Monokumas at the same time, without, once again, getting a single scratch on her. I don't really have anything to add to that. Nice way to portray Mukuro as the badass girl she was. While IF gives us the absolute insane abilities that Mukuro has, as well as slightly divulging the differences between the Despair Sisters, Danganronpa 3 gives us the rest. It's in the anime entry, mainly the Despair arc, that we see the two shine brightest. Or, well, irradiate darkness the dimmest? One of the two, for sure. Danganronpa 3 shows us one thing in particular. While Mukuro is super subservient to her sister, she doesn't have the same natural obsession with despair as her. In fact, it's heavily implied that she only really claims to be obsessed with it to, yet again, please Junko. It's so tragic, because it becomes painfully obvious that Junko planned to dispose of her as soon as she devised the plan for the killing school life. Of course, being blinded by love won't let you see that, and Mukuro was a big victim of that. I believe both versions of the character perfectly complement each other, giving us one of the most complex and complete characters in this series. Sure, she died super early on in her debut, but it's because it'd be impossible to write the story the way it was written if she was alive. The qualities she has are just so diverse. Surprisingly so too, given that she was meant to play a secondary role. But don't you worry, I do have some issues with her. Let's get into that. Before we start this section, I'm basically obligated to intervene myself. This will be one of the few times where an entire section of a TWD will be spoiler territory, at least for those who know Danganronpa 1. So, yeah. Heavy spoilers for the entirety of the critics section, you have been warned. What I'm about to say is an inevitability when talking about Mukuro, but it unfortunately needs to be addressed, for better or worse. I said that Mukuro was my third favorite character in the entire game, but it wasn't always like that. I do love the Ultimate Soldier like I always have, and not just because she looks remarkably similar to a certain photographer I love and adore, but there's a reason she wasn't always so high in my favorites list, and it's quite aggravating. It all relates to what I said earlier. Sure, she died super early on in her debut, but it's because it'd be impossible to write the story the way it was written if she was alive. I stand by that, through and through. But while it is objectively true, I can't agree with it being the reality. I hate it. Hate that a character with more lore than 80% of the rest of the cast in the series is thrown under the bus for the sake of a clean killing game. And yeah, I get it. It's just like I said, Mukuro was meant to be forgettable, a secondary character. But it's something that always, and I mean always, bothered me. Without IF and Danganronpa 3, she's a blank sheet of paper waiting to be written upon. That is unbelievably sad. Again, and I really get it. From a storytelling perspective, Mukuro had to die. She didn't have her memory wiped, just like the rest of the cast. Her knowledge made her dangerous, and Junko knew that. IF shows us what would happen if she was left alive, and, well, Junko made sure that didn't happen. But I can't let it go. Even her free time events emphasize the idea that Mukuro was meant to be alive for a very short amount of time. In my original top 10, I referred to school mode for my arguments regarding her, and with good reason. It's all I had at the time. My arguments on them don't change. In fact, knowing what I do now, they only increase in strength. Combining all three pieces of media that more heavily feature our soldier girl makes a beautifully complex character. One that was swept under the rug just because the story so demanded it. It's funny, right? My main complaint regarding Mukuro is not enough Mukuro, more please. And I'm sure I'm far from alone in that regard. Hell, Spike has always been super cautious in what they reveal of Mukuro's true personality and looks in the games. But why the hell is that the case when Danganronpa 3 fucking exists? We know how Mukuro looks, how she thinks, and what she does. Hell, my favorite Mukuro scene? Her fight with Peko in the despair arc of Danganronpa 3. We see little of it, but it's impactful to know she could battle Peko to more than a standstill. She fucking won! And you wanna know what's the worst thing? I'm not sure they'll ever acknowledge again that her existence is something more than a placeholder for a Junko wannabe. I fucking despise that. That is my one true gripe with this character. And I can't stress this enough. More Mukuro, Spike, please! I'm kind of getting ahead of myself. We should talk about that with the blue background. Mukuro Ikusaba, the 16th student, lying hidden somewhere within the goddamn series. The one they call the Ultimate Soldier. You don't really need to watch out for her. She's been MIA for a while, and I fear it will continue like this. Look, if not even Danganronpa S does her justice, I fear no other new possible entry in the franchise will. I love Mukuro. If that wasn't clear enough from my unending praise to her. From her concept to her dynamic with her sister, passing by her legendary combat prowess. It was all set up like one of the great characters of the series. But then, of course, Junko said no hogging my spotlight. I'd take Mukuro over Junko any day. Then again, you guys know my weakness to freckles, so hey, maybe there's a little bias in this analysis. Nevertheless, you'll always be a part of my favorites, Mukuro Ikusaba. There's no need to ask the questions I usually do at the end of these, just like I did in the first half of this TWD. And not just because she's a demon. Mukuro, given the right circumstances, would have been something akin to an angel. A rather murderous angel, but an angel nonetheless. Fitting then that the song she sings in Danganronpa 3's Despair arc is called Please Give Me Wings. Because that's all she ever needed to reach the heavens. Rest in peace, Mukuro. Thank you for watching this half of an installment for TWD number 9, everyone. I know this was very unorthodox, but I do have to thank you if you've made it this far. This one was by far the most ambitious TWD to date, and I'm pretty happy with how it turned out in the end. If you haven't already, go check out the other half of this TWD, focusing on none other than the mastermind of the entire series, Junko Enoshima. Link in the description and the card during the end screen. Once again, the poll for the next character will also be in the description of the video, so make sure you make your voice be known and vote for who you want to see next. Other than that, we're done here. Once again, thank you for watching. If you liked this video, please leave a like and consider subscribing if you are new to the channel. If you want to be notified of future uploads like this one, hit the little bell, you know what to do. Also, if you want to join my Discord server or follow me on my Twitch channel for more constant updates, link to both is in the description below as well. I believe that's all. Stay safe, and until next time, peace!